Hello and welcome to Working Lunch, the Chamber's weekly series where we talk with community leaders, getting to know the person behind the work and the important things they're delivering. I'm Jim D'Antona, CEO of the San Luis Chamber. Today, we'll be having a conversation with the recently appointed mayor of the city of San Luis Obispo, Erica A. Stewart. Following the unexpected resignation of former Mayor Harmon earlier this fall, Mayor Stewart has stepped up and into this new role following her initial election to City Council in November of 2018 and serving this past year as Vice Mayor. Her election to the City Council eventually her appointment to the mayor of the city of SLO made her the first African American elected to the City Council and to serve as mayor in the city's history. In addition to her public service, Mayor Stewart has a full-time position at Cal Poly, serving the assistant director of personnel and marketing for Campus Health and Wellbeing. In line with her passion of helping people improve their lives, the mayor has served as a county commissioner, president of HRCC, steering committee member for the City of SLO's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Taskforce, and as president of the Cal Poly Alumni Association board, and as a former chair of our own SLO Chamber Issues Evaluation Committee. I'm excited to talk to Mayor Stewart about what got her involved in politics, how she goes about her decision-making on the City Council, and her priorities for our community. Mayor Stewart, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Perfect. Well, as everyone settles into lunch, can you give us where are you zooming in from today?
Well, small quaint town, city of San Luis Obispo at work on my lunch period.
Oh, well, it's fabulous to have you here. So I'd love to start at kind of the beginning. What was your first political experience and what imprint did it leave on you?
Well, my first political experience was definitely at Cal Poly. I ran for my freshman dorm president, the residence hall, the beautiful red brick Santa Lucia. And it was the first experience I'd ever done anything in ASB, ASI, et cetera. So really an exciting experience. And that just led me off to all of Cal Poly, my entire Cal Poly experience from my freshman year on to the board of directors, being elected for my college. It was the College of Professional Studies, which no longer exists. And then later ASI president.
That's pretty exciting and a tough gig trying to get young college people engaged in that voting process, I'm sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, well, when you're looking at when your closest friends look at you and family, do they describe you, or how would they describe you in terms of were they surprised when you first expressed an interest in running for elected office?
Well, it's funny. I kind of thought they would be. And as we started talking about this in the last few years, my closest friends were actually not very surprised at all. They said, "Oh yeah, I kind of always expected you would do something big." And I'm like, "Really?" And in sharing recently with a friend of mine, because I was on the in the paper for my hometown in Santa Rosa, and one of my friends reached out to me and said, "Oh wow, congratulations! My mom sent me the article," and I said, she goes, "Yeah, I never really thought of you as like quiet or nerdy or whatever," and that was how the article described me, which I had definitely self-said as a nerdy dorky person. She goes, "But then again, I thought about it and I was the one in band, so as I was in choir, she was in band, we hung out all the time, and I was very outgoing with her, but and my other close friends, but outside of my close friend group, very quiet and shy."
That's funny, and definitely can't be something that's part of a political experience or how you expressed during there. Can't be that shy person anymore. Was there something specific, or what are some of the characteristics that you think that contribute to a great elected official?
Well, I think for me, being open and willing to learn and willing to hear people's stories, kind of from like junior high and on, I kind of was between Dr. Ruth and Dear Abby. I don't know if you're familiar with those individuals, but everyone kind of would always tell me their stories, people that I have never met ever in my life, or people who were close friends. So that has really lent to being a good elected leader because I'm willing to listen. And even if I have a very different opinion, it doesn't matter. My desire is to get to know what someone's wanting, what their challenges are, what their barriers are, what their fears are, what their passions are, because that helps us come to an understanding and hopefully comes to a compromise in the future if it can be met, or if it can't be a compromise, to at least explain where we're coming from, how I can still help them with their barriers and their challenges.
Well, and there was actually an interesting comment just generationally. Have we gotten to a point where Dear Abby is not known, or is that something now that?
Well, I say that because Dear Abby now is a very small part of the paper, and I get the digital version. So unless I think of searching out for Dear Abby, people don't know. And the other day, I described my husband and I as James Carville and Mary Matlin, because I'm the Democrat and he was the Republican in our families, sorry, and that's how we've been for all of our life. Recently, he became NPP because there's been a lot of interesting challenges in the Republican party, but that for us has always worked. We are going for the same goal, but we're getting there with different pathways. And so when someone said they didn't know who James Carville was and Mary Matlin and had to be described, I said, well, I better start describing these older things. I guess I am older.
I feel your pain. I was listening to an oldies station the other day and they played Guns N' Roses and I almost lost it. It was soul crushing, but I got up and battled through. But you're exactly right. Having to explain some of these things that maybe our generation knew a little better. But yeah, so thinking about it, what made you pull the trigger then to get involved? Was there a defining moment that led you to where you are today?
For me, it was a combination locally and nationally. In 2016, we had an election with very outgoing, outspoken individual who was leading our country, and there was a lot of negativity around women and communities of color. There was a very large lack of civility locally and nationally, and there was someone who I've been friends with for a long time. Our kids have grown up together, and he was on Facebook, and he decided to leave Facebook, and without making the trumpet announcement, he did say, I'm leaving Facebook. People are talking to me on here the way they would never talk to me in person. And he left Facebook. And I think that is kind of how politics has gotten. It's, people are doing the cancel culture. They are wanting to be as volatile as possible from both extremes. And I just thought, wow, if I can make any difference in what we're doing right now, I feel I can do it without being name calling and extreme. And I wanted to try to help make a difference. So originally I wasn't planning on running for office. I was planning to support others. And then here it went.
Well, in getting elected to the city council is one thing, and all five, the four council members and the mayor serve together. But can you talk about maybe what's the biggest difference between being a council member and the mayor?
Well, it's interesting. We all hold one vote, just one. But now that I'm mayor, people want to reach out to me first before reaching out to the city council. And I think that comes from, I do meet, of course, with the city manager and the city attorney more often. I do meet with them first on the agenda review before the council does as mayor, because we're looking at how are we going to approach the agenda? How are we going to, and I help lead and facilitate and guide what the agenda is looking like. Now, of course, I still need two of my fellow colleagues to agree on what goes on the agenda. But as far as just the process of how staff is working, and I can bring those questions to the city manager probably a little quicker, I guess, in this role now. But really, it's I think just the expectation that, oh, wow, you're mayor, so can you come to this event, or can you be here, or can you represent the city council here? And that's something that I try to continue. I will try to continue to open up to all of the city council. We're actually going to join a second grade class on next Tuesday, the 9th. And I'm excited because a couple of my city council members talked about attending as well. So I think it's going to be at least myself and one other city council member. So it's not just about the mayor. And I want students and everyone in the community to remember that leadership is not just in the tippy top position of any organization.
Well, and thinking about that, there are, I mean, downsides. You have to run more often. You're more the target of what is happening, of any challenges or concerns. Why were you interested then in stepping up into that role of mayor?
Yeah, I at first didn't think this was the role that I would want to apply for. I liked the idea of being a city council member only. I work a full-time job, so I didn't know that I could handle the extra hours. And then when Heidi Harmon resigned, I looked to my employer and said, is it possible for me to do some sort of adjustment in my hours? And so now I am 3/4 time. So I'm still full-time, but not full-time. And so that allowed me the time to do it. But really the leadership aspect is, I know that I can do this role with civility. I know that I have the experience of many different aspects of my life that I think brings some of the empathy and understanding in this role that maybe some others of my colleagues maybe didn't have. Nothing in a bad way, just that I felt that I had those things. And one thing I found also from being in the city council role before I became mayor is there are just issues that are from women or African Americans or students that they have felt really comfortable talking to me because I do have some of their identities, and they wanted to share where they're at or talk to me because they know that I have at least some understanding of what they're talking about. So that I feel it can also transfer into being the mayor.
Certainly, but one of the things that probably happens a lot in your role is misconceptions about what you can do or be as mayor. What so far have you seen has been that kind of biggest misconception?
Well, I will say even with the past mayor, I think people put things on this role that it's all our fault for XYZ. And there are rules that are coming down from the county, from the state, from federally that we don't have the ability to change. We just have the ability to guide within those rules. And I think that is a hard part to take is, I think City Manager Johnson says often, we don't build the housing. We try to make the housing as accessible as possible to those who are willing to build. So when we look at trying to increase affordable housing, it's really working with groups like HASLO and People Self-Help Housing and of course, developers, and working with the state and different nonprofits and different governmental agencies that can help bring either some money into the community or help allow us to loosen zoning in certain areas. It's even like childcare. We were able, as our part of childcare, to open up the ability to open childcare in any location within the city. But before that, we weren't able to with zoning. Now, take it to the next level. We don't open childcare though either, right? I don't get to run a childcare on my own, or nor can the staff necessarily, short of some after school care. So how do we also go through and help with childcare going forward? It's by partnering with nonprofits, partnering with governmental agencies, partnering with the community as a whole.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it right on the head. Even from on the outside in the private sector, as we talk about, advocating with government can only do so much to lay the groundwork.
Right.
It's up to the private sector and others to then build on that to create the things that you're trying to do. And you can incentivize it, but all those things, but you can't wave the magic wand, right?
Right. I wish. Abracadabra. Anyway.
it would be great, I'm sure. So when you think about kind of, historically fictional leaders, are there any that you try to channel when you're faced kind of with tough decisions?
I love this question because every time I've tried to think about this and I never come up with just one. I really look at, all of our ancestors that we are learning from and growing from, that gave the foundation to where we're at today. I look at past leaders that fought for, voters' rights, women's rights, civil rights. I'm looking at everyone from, a teacher that, I got this great call, and I haven't been able to call him back yet, from my high school choir teacher. And he is someone who completely gave me a chance to open up a little bit from my shyness. And then I also think about my English teacher, who we all had to read a biography. I'm sure you all did this in high school. And I learned about this woman. Her name was Merle Oberon. She was an actress. She was half Black, half white. And at the time, and the black and white movies, she was able to pass. And talking about the work that she was able to do, or even I look at the Bible and the way that, Esther was able to bring the Jewish people in together. So I look at, there's always someone in all of history that is giving the ability to have women to vote, or people of color to vote. And then I look at right now, when we look at the apathy, and part of what fuels me to even do what I do in elected office or in my volunteer work in the past, is we can't be self-sustainable and we can't move forward if we're not all willing to be part of making the change. So the apathy with the frustration of all of the fighting and the infighting and the extreme, it doesn't actually help us move things forward. And so for me, I'm always looking at, Martin Luther King and Harriet Tubman and all these people who really actually did the work, but also helped others come alongside and do the work too.
Talking about, tying right into that, are there experiences specific to you or programs you'd recommend to people who might be interested in growing their leadership roles?
I mean, of course, how can I not say, as a graduate of class 15 and a class member of class 19, that Leadership SLO is, of course, one of the greatest experiences in this community, especially if you want to be local. Because if you want to be an elected official that is local, learning about our entire county is really important to the work that we do. As elected official in any one city, what we do in our one city is not just it. We have to work regionally with all of the other cities, and then as well as the county, the state, the federal government. Early on in this year, Heidi Harmon wasn't able to attend the mayor's meeting. So back in January, February, I started going, and the camaraderie of all of the mayors in this county, we were really able to look at certain issues like homelessness, like COVID recovery, economic recovery, housing. How can we work together and grow forward? And if we don't do that as a group, we won't be as successful. Then, when you get to the next part, though, and you want to run for office, as a Democrat woman, I would obviously suggest Emerge California or Emerge America if you're not in California. There's also other great women-focused programs like She Should Run, Close the Gap. And, I just really look at, I hope that through the city, we'll be offering some trainings in the future of how to understand your city and how to understand the process of running. And then every year, of course, the city clerk, at least in SLO, will do a presentation about how to run, just the nuts and bolts of what to fill out, and Women in the Pipeline. I'm part of that group. I know that we have hosted some different events as to how to actually be part of running for office. Plus, there's wonderful opportunities to do things online through Zoom and good old library as well.
Well, those are incredibly important. And sorry, I didn't mean to softball you the Leadership SLO question, but I agree with you. It's an incredibly impactful way to connect in this community, especially if you're new or haven't been so connected yet. What about people who want to support elected officials? What's the most impactful way someone can help you do your role, or any elected official?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many ways that people can help. Of course, during campaign, in the city of SLO, we can only raise $300 per person. If you are a household, let's say there's two partners in the household and you have a joint checking account, that's $600. Woo. So when you're raising, $30,000 to $60,000, any amount of help financially is really good. But volunteering is one of the greatest ways. I am so thankful. In this last year, I think I've had 7 volunteer interns doing my social media. And one of the biggest disappointments for me when COVID hit, well, there's so many, but I mean, as an elected official, one of my goals was after the first year to really get out there and communicate with people more and help people know what's going on and get feedback. And with COVID and everything shutting down, it just wasn't possible. So I was really thankful that the different individuals who have helped me on social media helped me get information out, newsletters, social media, and then getting information back. Email is also, of course, great. We all are checking our email. You may not always get the email back as fast or at all, but we do take that feedback and know that that helps us making our decisions. And then if there are other ways that, you'd like to help an elected official get the word out or give them your expertise. I mean, I'll tell you, I'm not an expert on everything. So I depend on people who have, all different sides of an issue. When we're talking about the new public safety center this coming Tuesday, there are people that are very pro policing and what we're doing right now. There are people that are very not pro policing, and why and how we do this going forward as a community is really important to hear everyone's opinions. I had someone that helped me, gather all of those articles that were going on when 8 Can't Wait, back in, July of last year, and learning really what that meant and what the use of force and how we're in different places when it comes to what's allowed statewide and what we can change statewide and what we can change citywide. So, looking at all of that, having someone help kind of gather all the information for me was so great because the city staff is awesome. They gain everything they can for the city, but really it's more to that, right? So really seeing the best practices and learning what's happening in other places that we can also utilize here is awesome.
And you talked a little bit about there, obviously, the challenges in the pandemic. Obviously, the relationship between the city and the business community is incredibly important. We're so thankful for everything you've done for the city of SLO, all the work that's gone on to, keep a vibrant economy. How can we work together most effectively? What does success maybe look like to you?
Yeah, I love that. I mean, one of the things that I've always really appreciated is the SLO Chamber's involvement in the whole community, of our whole county, really, because you're really able to get what businesses are thinking, what they need, what maybe barriers we might have. I know we changed a lot with our permit processing so it could be more efficient and more smooth. And that I know from some business members have said, wow, thank you so much. That goes much faster now. And therefore it's cheaper because they're not having to go back and duplicate work, which is fantastic. I know the parklets was a major partnership between the businesses, planning and developing, council RPs, and city staff, so we could help businesses be able to still succeed. So I think similar to parklets, what else is out there that the businesses need that we can be involved in and partner with and collaborate with? So I think just sharing with us what else you need as businesses is really important. Downtown SLO, I know that the association works really closely with the businesses. If you happen to have a business in downtown SLO or are about to, get connected with them. They do great advocacy for you on your behalf to us. But truly just communicating what the needs are and if there's something that we're not doing that you see in another community that we could do, great. Let's figure that out. Let's look at those options. What works in LA may not work in San Luis Obispo, right? What works in Minnesota or New York may not work in San Luis Obispo, but maybe they do. So, one of the things that I know that on a multicultural sense is the lack of multicultural food here and how difficult it is to just open up a brand new large restaurant out of nowhere. And there have been some really cool things, the Santa Barbara Funk Zone. There's a place, a city named Troy in New York, and they have this multicultural funk zone, for lack of a better word, and these little pop-up businesses of delicious food and services for different multicultural needs. And that is something that we need the businesses to partner up with us on, because we again don't open businesses and run them. So, we really have to figure out how to work together. And even just having the membership of SLO Chamber be willing to put, the multicultural little symbol if someone wants to, or the Cal Poly Alumni little symbol if they want to. It's a great way to connect and help those of us in the community know that we can support a BIPOC business because it's already right there. Hey, yeah, I'm identified as a BIPOC business. I want you to buy my product. And that's what we need to know is how do we help the community and how do we help the city?
Love what you're talking about there on the multicultural, like food funk zone would be amazing, especially as someone coming
Right?
from LA where I could go to Thai or Cambodian or Mexican, whatever I'm looking for. There was always something. It would be awesome to have that. So kind of
Yeah.
thinking along those lines and going further down, kind of maybe long-term or maybe some short-term things. What are some of the top priorities, for the next year or in the next coming years for you? Any projects or investments you're kind of really excited about?
Well, I mean, kind of just continuing that multicultural for a second, DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion is one of our major city goals. And I know that there are students from Cal Poly that are actually working with members of the city and members of the community looking at a feasibility study of a multicultural center here in SLO. And I think how fabulous would that be? I think that if we could find a space where people can feel they belong, that only helps continue exude into the whole city, the whole county, and help people feel like, yes, I do belong here. Yes, I want my friends to come visit me here. Yes, I want my family to be here. And that's a fabulous option. I'm also really excited about, the economic recovery and what we've continued to work on and will continue to work on of helping businesses and individuals and families succeed past COVID when, there's still the rent relief program, and that's for tenants and landlords that are affected by COVID. And I often get responses from Five Cities Homeless Center from the executive director there that they are willing to go everywhere throughout this county and help people get access and get through all the paperwork and submitting all the paperwork they need to be able to get that funding from the state. It's there, it's waiting for you. So I think there are things that are looking at how do we help people access the different resources for economic recovery. Also, as we look at how do we help multimodal, the railroad safety trail is happening. I saw 2 more parts of the bridge today when I was on my way to work. I'm so excited about making it more accessible for people to get from home to work, to school, to wherever they need to be, by foot, by rolling and strolling, and whatever way that means to them. And hopefully sometime we can get more bus drivers and we can have better access to buses too.
A lot of exciting things kind of coming down the pike, and it's really great to see the city of SLO taking those steps kind of going forward. Thinking about, I know that you've been a small business owner, worked for nonprofits, government, private sector, in addition to being a mom, arts community, active community volunteer. How does your extraordinary breadth of experience come into play when you're making a decision on the dais about these things?
Well, I think being involved in so much in the community, it's given me the ability to at least want to have someone to go reach out to and say, hey, we have these arts issues. Okay, I'll just reach out right now to someone from Vocal Arts Ensemble or Arts Obispo. Who should I go to? And that's a great start. Kevin from Slow Repertory. Whatever it might be. And then when it comes to being a parent, our kids have gone to at least 4 of the elementary schools here. Oh gosh, what do you call it? Another school that closed that really helped be like alternative education, junior high, the high school. Of course, I'm very familiar with Cal Poly. So I feel like I have a lot of connection to different parts of education. So when people are telling me their challenges, I can at least somewhat understand what they're talking about. And it helps me also think about how I can help them get connected better. When we talk about homelessness and housing, I don't want to share the confidences of my family and friends, but there are many of us who have been homeless in different ways. And luckily in my immediate family of my family of 4, we had some wonderful friends who helped us out during some of those really tough times. But then, going through the county process of Department of Social Services and not getting much help at all, I also know that feeling, and that's really disheartening, and it's really difficult, or the city going through some sort of construction, and all of us on the block, except for Woodstock's, closed at that time because our businesses couldn't handle the closing and opening of the street. So I understand that small business and what they're going through and want to help them in whatever way that I can, knowing there's limitations. Obviously, now that I know more of the city side of things, how can I help? And the affordable housing is still huge on my mind of how do we help more individuals who are working families, working individuals, somewhat decent jobs. How do we get them housing, as well as someone who has no housing and is living on the street or living on a couch or living in a shelter? So how do we help? And that's what I'm constantly looking at, is all of those experiences to help create hopefully some better solutions going forward.
I know we're super thankful for all of your efforts, because you do have this breadth of experience. And I think it's one of those things that people appreciate in an elected official who's been able to see that. So I think it's done you well, and you are showing some of those great leadership points through that, those efforts. Thinking about just kind of one of our final questions here around the idea of the pandemic. Are there any silver linings you found that you're hoping we can keep when everything is back to normal?
I don't think we'll ever be back to normal, but I guess that new normal will happen, right? I do think that there is this hybrid aspect of life that we're living right now, Zoom and or whatever way you're getting your hybrid version of online, as well as in person. So I hope there is some way we do this combination. But I do need us to remember during this process that not everyone has the digital aspect. I was speaking to someone who is currently homeless and is trying to get out of this space, and has a voucher now, but can't get a place to live because there's not a place for her to use that darn voucher. She has a phone and she could access, our meeting, but her phone is, a pay phone or a pay per minute phone. So if she sits there on a 4-hour meeting, she would use up all of her minutes. So we've got to figure out some different ways still to help people who are maybe not as digitally either savvy or financially able, or just broadband wise don't have the ability to get that access. So hoping that we remember, like, hybrid is a great way to get more accessibility, but let's not lose people in moving fully forward to hybrid.
Great point. Yeah, the digital divide is really an issue that, I'm sure a lot of people don't even recognize being out there, but it is a major one. So I'm so glad you brought that up as a piece to keep in mind, so that everybody's involved in our public life.
Yeah.
Well, if as we get to the end of our show here, if people wanted to connect with you or learn more about what's going on in the city, where should they go?
Well, of course, slowcity.org, of course. And if you'd like to connect with me on social media, I am at SLO City Mayor on most, I think all the platforms, well, not Snapchat, but Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And I do have a newsletter. You can always sign up. It just went out yesterday, but you can still access it on my social media pages. And I'm trying to send a newsletter out once a month. And you can always, I'm always willing to do a Zoom phone call or Zoom call or a phone call or a email or even a meet and greet if it works. I am vaccinated and not triple boosted, but definitely vaccinated, and I'm happy to meet with people with a mask, without a mask, outside, etc. So let me know what you're thinking about. Check online about what's going on in our agenda. We have so many things going on upcoming: homelessness, design elements on housing, public safety, and of course we're all going into the holidays. I hope that people remember that holidays are awesome and wonderful and cheery, and they're also somewhat challenging for people who are going through grief and loss. And so just 211 is a great way to access all sorts of services in our community. And so I just hope that people remember both of those wonderful things during the holidays.
Thank you for that message. And just for everyone knows, we just dropped in the slowcity.org link down there. We'll also place some of the mayor's connection points so you can easily, but interestingly enough, just had also a comment on Facebook that Juliet was saying there's an attempt at an Ethiopian restaurant in Los Osos. I know it's not the city of SLO, but and finding a way to try and pull that together, which would be amazing. So Juliet, thanks for that note. Very fun.
Most of the delicious food I have found that is multicultural is pop-ups. So I'm excited to have an actual restaurant we can sit down and enjoy.
So to close out our conversation like we do every week, I'd love to know, you've obviously had a fire hose coming at you for a while. What are you looking forward to this weekend?
Well, this weekend, I have to say, it is Halloween, and while my kids are older now, 22 and 17-year-old boys, we still do the same tradition of the family we've hung out with all of since they were probably 4, and get together and put out, send out the trick or treating, and sometimes do a little bit of adult trick or treating as well. So excited to do that. And tonight we'll be going to a winery and enjoying that little adult time versus the trick or treating and watch all the kids in their cute costumes. Yesterday was great farmers market. I got to be a judge and see some of the best costumes ever. I hope that downtown is posting away and showing you some of the awesome costumes that were out there, because there were some great homemade ones and also really adorable purchased ones. So thank you so much for having me involved in that.
That's so great. Well, Mayor Stewart, thank you so much. Been an honor getting to talk with you and getting to know the person behind the title, and for you spending so much time with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was a great time.
As always, for you, our guests, if you have questions, feel free to add them into the Facebook comments below. And if the mayor gets a free moment after the weekend where she can maybe take a little break that she so rightly deserves, she'll be able to get back maybe and answer some of those. For all of you out there, we appreciate you turning in. We have something fun for you next Friday. We're going to do a guest takeover of the Working Lunch. I will be out of town, but we have invited the executive director of the SLO Food Bank, Garrett Olson, to host a conversation with Andrea Chavez, the manager of Tally Farms Box Program, talk about all the wonderful things they're working on to serve our community. We appreciate you tuning in. Have a wonderful weekend. Stay healthy and safe out there, everyone.